I had not heard my son's voice for 15 years, until yesterday. And when the phone rang, I almost didn't pick it up. If I had ignored that call, I would have lost something I can never replace. The call that changed my day. I am 70 years old. My hair is white, my hands are wrinkled, and my steps are slow. But my heart is still that of a mother. And yesterday, it beat faster than it has in years. The morning began like any other. I was sitting by the window, knitting a small sweater for no one in particular. I often knit things and keep them in a box, just in case someone needs them. My little house was quiet, except for the sound of the clock ticking on the wall. Then the phone rang. I almost didn't answer it. At my age, most phone calls are from neighbors asking about the weather, or from doctors reminding me about my checkups. But something in the way the phone rang felt different. It rang slow, almost like it was waiting for me. I picked it up. "Hello," I said in my tired, soft voice. For a moment, there was only silence. And then I heard it. "Mom." I froze. My heart stopped for a second. That voice. I knew it. Even after 15 years, I knew it. "Daniel," I whispered. He didn't answer right away. I could hear his breathing on the other end, heavy, uneven. Then he said, "It's me, Mom. I didn't know if you'd pick up." I sat back in my chair, gripping the phone so tightly that my hand hurt. Memories flooded in, his little boy laughter, his teenage arguments, the day he walked out of my house and never came back. 15 years ago, we had a fight. A bad one. Words were said that should never be said between a mother and her son. And just like that, he was gone. I tried to speak, but my voice broke. "I'm here, Daniel. I'm here." There was another pause. Then he said something that made my eyes fill with tears. "Mom, I'm sorry." I swallowed hard. The years of pain, the empty birthdays, the Christmas dinners where his chair stayed empty, they all came back in a wave. But there he was, on the other end of the phone, sounding like the little boy I used to tuck into bed. We didn't speak for long. He told me he was in the city, that life had been hard, and that he wasn't the same person he used to be. I told him I didn't care about the past, I just wanted to see him again. And then, before hanging up, he said, "Mom, can I come home?" I felt my lips tremble as I answered. "Daniel, your home never stopped being yours." When I put down the phone, I just sat there for a long time, staring out of the window. I was shaking, not from fear, but from something else, hope. Hope I thought had died years ago. Tomorrow he will come. And for the first time in 15 years, I will see my son again. But deep down, I also know something. Life doesn't just give you back lost years without a reason. This meeting will change everything. The doorbell. The next day felt longer than the past 15 years combined. I woke up before the sun. My knees ached as I got out of bed, but I didn't care. Today was the day my son was coming home. I moved slowly but with purpose. I cleaned the house even though it was already clean. I cooked enough food for a small wedding. I wanted the smell of home to greet him the second he stepped inside. Fresh bread, chicken stew, and his favorite apple pie. I had not baked that pie in years. My hands shook when I sliced the apples, but my heart felt steady. Every time I passed the clock, I thought about how many hours were left. Every car that passed outside made me look toward the window. I told myself not to expect too much. People change, life changes. But in my heart, I still pictured the boy who used to run to me after school with scraped knees and a smile. By noon, the food was ready. The table was set. His old room was prepared just as it had been before he left. I even put the blue blanket I had knitted for him when he was 12 at the foot of his bed. Then, at 3:15, the doorbell rang. I froze. For a moment, I couldn't move. My hands felt cold, my breathing quick. After 15 years, what do you say to your own child? Finally, I opened the door. He stood there, taller than I remembered. His hair was shorter, and his face had more lines, but his eyes were the same. Those brown eyes I had kissed goodnight for years. We didn't speak at first. We just stood there, looking at each other. And then, slowly, he stepped forward and wrapped his arms around me. I hadn't been hugged like that in years, tight, desperate, almost like he was afraid I would disappear if he let go. I felt the weight of his head rest against my shoulder, and that's when I realized my son was crying. "I'm sorry, Mom," he whispered again, his voice breaking. "I should have come sooner. I should have called sooner." I held him like I used to when he was little. "You're here now, Daniel. That's all that matters." When we finally went inside, he sat at the table, looking around the house like he was trying to remember every corner. He smiled when he saw the pie. "You still make it," he said softly. We ate in silence at first. He seemed nervous, like he didn't know how to start. His hands shook when he picked up the spoon. I could see the years on him, the weight of things he had faced alone. Finally, I asked, "Where have you been all these years?" He looked down, avoiding my eyes. "Everywhere and nowhere, Mom. I work sometimes. Slept in places I'm not proud of. Made friends I shouldn't have. I was too ashamed to come back." I reached across the table and touched his hand. "You are my son. There is nothing in this world that could make me stop loving you." He looked at me then, and I saw it, the boy I knew, hidden under all the years of pain. That night, after dinner, we sat by the fireplace. He told me more, things that hurt to hear, mistakes he had made, people he had lost. And I told him about the quiet years, the lonely birthdays, the empty Christmases. Before going to bed, he said something that stayed with me. "Mom, I don't just want to stay for a visit. I want to make things right. I want to be your son again." I went to bed that night with tears on my pillow, but they were different this time. They weren't tears of loss. They were tears of getting back what I thought was gone forever. But I also knew healing 15 years of distance would not be simple. Tomorrow, we would start facing the truth together. The truth I didn't expect. The next morning, I woke up before Daniel. I made coffee and warmed the leftover bread from yesterday. The house felt different, fuller. I could hear him breathing softly in his old room, and for the first time in years, the silence didn't feel lonely. When he finally came out, he looked rested but serious. His eyes had that same weight I noticed yesterday. I could tell there was more he hadn't told me. We sat at the table with our coffee. He kept staring into his cup, like the steam might give him courage. Finally, he spoke. "Mom, there's something I have to tell you. The real reason I stayed away for so long." My hands went cold. I had imagined 1,000 reasons over the years. Anger, pride, trouble with the law, maybe even that he'd started a new life without me. But nothing prepared me for what he said next. I was in prison. The words fell heavy between us. I didn't move, didn't speak. He went on. "It wasn't for something violent, but it was still wrong. I stole. I was broke, hungry, and desperate. I thought I could take a shortcut and fix everything. Instead, I ruined it all. I didn't want you to know your son was a criminal. So I stayed away." I stared at him for a long time. He wouldn't meet my eyes. He looked ashamed, like a little boy caught doing something terrible. But this was different. This was my grown son, carrying years of regret. I reached out and touched his hand. "Daniel, you made a mistake. A big one. But you paid for it. You've lived with it. And you're here now." His voice cracked. "But I missed so much, Mom. Your birthdays. The last years with Dad before he passed. Everything. I can't get that back." I felt my throat tighten. "You can't bring back time, Daniel. But you can make the time we have now matter." For the first time, he looked up at me, tears in his eyes. "Do you forgive me?" I smiled sadly. "Daniel, a mother's heart doesn't work like that. I forgave you before you even asked." He leaned forward, and we hugged again, longer, tighter than yesterday. But this hug felt different. Yesterday was about coming home. Today was about coming clean. After that, we talked more honestly than we had in years. He told me about the nights he slept on the streets, the times he almost gave up, the moments he thought about calling but hung up before the first ring. I told him about my own mistakes, how my pride kept me from searching harder, how my anger made the years colder. We both cried. We both laughed a little too, remembering better days. It was like opening an old box in the attic. Inside were dust and cobwebs, but also treasures we thought were lost. That evening, as the sun set, he asked me something unexpected. "Mom, do you think I could start over here? Get a job, rebuild my life?" I looked at him, really looked at him. Yes, he was older, worn down, but I could still see the boy with dreams in his eyes. "Yes, Daniel. You can. And I'll be right here, every step of the way." We didn't know it then, but that promise would be tested sooner than either of us expected. The weight of the past. The first week after Daniel came home was full of small joys. We ate together every day. He helped me in the garden, fixing the fence that had been leaning for years. He repaired the squeaky door in the kitchen without me asking. Sometimes I would catch him looking around the house, almost like he was checking to see if it still felt like home. But outside the safety of these walls, the world wasn't as kind. Daniel went to look for work. He came back that evening with tired eyes and slumped shoulders. "No one's hiring," he said quietly. But I knew there was more to it. It happened again the next day, and the day after, until finally he admitted, They don't want to hire someone with a record, Mom. I can't even get a chance. I could see the frustration building in him. His hands fidgeted at the table, his jaw clenched. I'm trying, but it feels like the whole world has already decided who I am. I reached over and put my hand on his. You are not the same man you were, Daniel. And not everyone will see that, but the right people will. But the truth was, even in our small town, word travels fast. People talk. Some of my neighbors who used to greet me with a smile now just nodded from a distance. One afternoon at the market, I overheard two women whispering. That's her son, the one who went to prison. It hurt, but I pretended not to hear. That night, Daniel asked me, do you think people will ever forget? I looked at him honestly. Some will. Some won't. But you don't need everyone to forget, Daniel. You just need to prove to yourself that you've changed. The next day, he tried something different. Instead of applying at big shops, he started offering to do small jobs. Painting fences, cleaning yards, repairing broken doors. At first, only a few people agreed. But those who did started telling others how well he worked. Slowly, the calls began to come in. One afternoon, he came home with dirt on his clothes and a smile on his face. Mom, I got paid today. Honest work. I saw something in his eyes I hadn't seen in a long time, pride. But just when I thought things were getting better, another challenge came. Someone spray-painted a word on our fence. A single ugly word, thief. I found it early in the morning. My hands shook as I tried to clean it, but the paint wouldn't come off. Daniel saw me and took the brush from my hands. I'll handle it, Mom. He painted over the fence himself, covering the word with fresh white paint. He didn't speak the whole time, but I could see how deeply it cut him. That evening, we sat in the living room. He said quietly, I know I can't erase my past, but I'm not running from it anymore. I looked at him, and in that moment I knew this was the fight of his life. Not just to earn money, but to earn back his place in the world. And I was ready to fight beside him. The chance to prove himself. 2 months had passed since Daniel came home. The days had a rhythm now, breakfast together, work during the day, simple dinners in the evening. He had more small jobs around town now, but he still struggled to find something stable. Then, one morning, while we were having tea, the phone rang. It was Mr. Harris, the owner of the hardware store in town. I'd known him for years, an honest, straightforward man. Mrs. Carter, he said, I heard your son has been doing odd jobs. I need someone to help at the store. Nothing fancy, stocking shelves, cleaning, fixing small things. Think Daniel would be interested. I almost shouted with joy. Yes, of course. He'll be there. When I told Daniel, he looked both surprised and cautious. Mom, you know Mr. Harris will hear about my past. What if he changes his mind? I put my hand on his shoulder. Then let him hear it from you. Honesty will speak louder than rumors. That afternoon, Daniel went to see Mr. Harris. I waited at home, my stomach in knots. He came back hours later, and the moment I saw his face, I knew. I start tomorrow, he said, smiling for the first time in days. I told him everything, Mom. About the prison, the mistakes, all of it. And you know what he said? He said, everyone deserves a second chance. I couldn't help it, I cried. The next few weeks, Daniel worked harder than I'd ever seen him work. He carried heavy boxes, organized tools, swept the floors until they shined. Customers started noticing. Some still avoided him, but others smiled and greeted him. One Saturday afternoon, something happened that changed everything. A woman came into the store with her little boy. She was distracted, looking for paint, and didn't notice when her wallet slipped from her bag. Daniel saw it, picked it up, and called after her. Ma'am, you dropped this. She turned, surprised. Oh my goodness, thank you. There's a lot of cash in here. You could have kept it. Daniel shook his head. Ma'am, I've made enough mistakes in my life. I'm not making that one again. She looked at him for a moment, then smiled warmly. I'm glad you're here in this town. Later that day, Mr. Harris pulled Daniel aside. I saw what you did. That's the kind of man I want working for me. When Daniel told me about it that night, there was something in his voice, strength. Not the strength of muscles, but the strength of knowing you've done the right thing when no one was watching. I realized then, this wasn't just about him finding a job. This was about him finding himself again. But life has a way of testing us when we least expect it. And the real test for Daniel was just around the corner. The final test. 2 weeks after the wallet incident, life seemed calm. Daniel was working full-time at the hardware store. He'd even started talking about saving money for his own place someday, though I told him he could stay here as long as he wanted. Then one evening, a knock came at the door. I opened it to find 2 police officers standing there. My heart stopped for a moment, thinking the worst. "Is Daniel Carter here?" one of them asked. Daniel stepped forward, calm but cautious. "That's me." They explained that there had been a break-in at a nearby shop the night before. Someone claimed they saw a man who looked like Daniel near the area. I felt anger rise in me. "Look like? That's not proof." Daniel put his hand on my shoulder. "It's okay, Mom. I have nothing to hide." They asked him to come to the station to answer a few questions. My hands trembled as I watched him leave. Old fears came rushing back. What if the past kept following him no matter what he did? Hours later, he returned. I ran to the door before he even knocked. "They cleared me," he said. "The store's security camera proved I was working at the hardware shop at the time. Mr. Harris even came to the station to confirm it." I breathed out a relief so deep it almost made me dizzy. But what Daniel said next stayed with me. "Mom, a few years ago I would have panicked. I would have run, thinking no one would believe me. But this time, I stood my ground. Because I know who I am now." That night, we sat in the living room, the fire crackling softly. Daniel looked at me and said, "You know, Mom, when I called you that day, I was scared you wouldn't answer." I smiled. "Daniel, even after 15 years, I would have always answered." He nodded slowly, his eyes wet. "I wasted so much time, Mom. But I'm not wasting any more." I reached over, holding his hand. "The past is a story we can't change. But the ending, that's still up to us." And in that quiet moment, I realized something. Yes, my son had made mistakes. Yes, we had lost years we could never get back. But what mattered was that he came home, not just to this house, but to himself. Sometimes the most powerful thing in life is not a second chance, but the courage to take it.